Hello world. Today we play War Plan Orange. It's a very detailed war game, hex based, like you see here, which plays in the interwar period. We are playing in this played by email campaign the Allies and start at 31st of May 1922, and the scenario ends in 31st December 1926. Our situation is rather complicated. The Japanese attack the whole Pacific realm and will invade the Philippines, I guess. I mean, I play against a human opponent, so I do not know precisely what he will do. On the west coast, we have a few battleships which I sent directly in massive task forces towards Pearl Harbor to reinforce it. And then we will see if we can or want to hold on to Midway and Wake. Guam is practically lost. In the Pacific eastern fringes we have some separated units. I will consolidate them at the Canton Island. The Fijis, I guess you can hold, even the French New Caledonian, and then we go to New Zealand. I guess all of this is out of their supply range effectively. Australia itself can defend itself very easily, and so with that we can muster some forces there to go on the offensive, or at least on a limited counterattack, mostly with subs. Manila will be evacuated towards the French Indochina. Haiphong or Hanoi, mostly that. We gather our Pacific Western assets around Singapore, so hopefully we can hold on to itself. Meanwhile, in India we gather our forces and building up different airfields so we can transfer our air force, who will arrive at Karachi as this unit receiving point in the west, force towards the east, so we can hopefully match or bomb the Japanese forces. The technology of this era is very limited, so wrong tip. Yeah, you can see that Japanese aircraft are very few in number, and even that's not all for this one scenario, it's all for the complete game. At the moment they fly the Mitsubishi 1F MF1, and that's a mediocre aircraft. For this time it's good, but all over it's mediocre compared to ours. I will get a little bit closer. For example, in Singapore we have a great headquarter, command headquarter, which gives us bonus on our assault strength. That's practically the combat strength of the unit. Here you see in the left number is practically what is missing, and the right is what it has. Showing in Shanghai more precisely is that we have different commands, like core commands. The difference between core and command to command is that practically the core command gives a little bit of bonus, I think 10%, but the command gives 90% bonus, so you can combine them to get a much stronger force. You can attach them to different headquarters all around the Pacific, or give them another commander with another leadership and inspiration. This all costs political points, so it's a very deep game here. Then you have some artillery units. The tiniest units is practically the company, and the biggest is the division, so to say. Here we have some armored cars, some artillery units, and some British regiments. Yeah, from all over the Commonwealth, mostly out of Britain itself, it seems. So yeah, and some Indians, and one French. The problem for China is that most of their units are incapable of movement because they are ruled by warlords. So they stand and fight, and if the warlords die or the unit have to retreat, then you can move them for a short period amount of time. Manchuria, which houses our most industry here in China, is sadly one which is unholdable because we have no troops there and we can't really move troops fast enough in. We'll have enough problems to defend China itself. Then to our battleships. We have fairly old ones like the Oklahoma. 23,000 yards is a decent range, but not against Japanese modern battleships, which have a range of low 20,000 to high 20,000s to low 30,000. So very harsh. Yes, and it's different class, the Arizona. We see them in the Second World War again. So that will be interesting how to organize them into a somewhat decent fleet to at least defend the west coast of the USA. Our best assets in the South Pacific are the battlecruisers Australia and the battlecruiser New Zealand, which is from the Indefatigable class. With 12 inches, I guess, pre-World War I classes. It will take at least half a year or so until our next ships arrives. Okay, we cannot see the aircraft reinforcement schedule now because that's practically before the first combat turn starts, so the day from 31st May to 1st of June 2022. The Soviets could be active, but at the moment they are not active. They only will be active if the Japanese attacks them or march into the territory, or if they attack them or march into the territory, or as they do not have enough garrison in Manchuria and Korea. So what else to show you? Mostly in this Let's Play I will show you the combat log and maybe a summary of the turn what I did, but in the first turn it sets a very many different things I did, so that's a little bit much to tell at the moment. You will see how it resolves. For example, here in Shanghai, to throw out Japanese units who is already in there through, I guess, international conditions or something prior to the war. I ordered a shock attack with pre-bombardment, so hopefully we throw them out of Shanghai. The Chinese fleet is existent, but very old and very complicated in armament, you can see. Yeah. So we will use them as a raiding between Tsingtao, the home islands, and Formosa, as raiding ships. So hopefully we can slow the Japanese advance down. Their production output is not so great, so I guess in 1 year or so we could maybe push them back, or in some areas. So we will see how this plays out. I'm very interested to see how good I am and how good my opponent is. I myself a beginner, so I will look regularly into the manual and see what I can do to make life a little bit harder for my opponent. So that was it for this turn. We see us back in the combat log, or in the combat in the combat turn. Servus, and with many Stukas.